Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Saturday, September 5th, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Saturday. Must be GM Review Day. What are we looking at? We're looking at a book I picked up in a discount section of a half-price bookstore. So while it is ostensibly a kind of pricey book now, as I see from looking around for it on eBay and Amazon and whatnot, I'm seeing that it is a little expensive. So, keep your eyes peeled. I'm not sure. There's a nick in the cover of mine. You can see it at the bottom there. Right? Yeah. So, maybe because it was nicked, it got... Because it's one of those covers that if you nick it, it shows, for sure. And it's kind of a fancy interior with a sort of a parchment background, and they use all kinds of cursive header fonts, subheader fonts anyway. So, I don't know. It's kind of meant to look like a diary, maybe 2007 Fall River. Let me see. The link I'll put in the show notes is going to be to Goodreads, because I don't see a good, inexpensive version of this out there. Well, it's interesting. It's not it's not what I would call an essential. It's not like a book that you're going to glean tons and tons of background and historical information that you can port over. Filing off the serial numbers, changing the names of the nations, adjusting their politics slightly, and then suddenly you've got a whole history of two of the nations of your campaign setting. So, from a GM perspective, there is limited use to this. There are 40 individuals detailed in here. Let me do this real quick. And we'll pop over to this other screen. Take a look at the Goodreads page here, right? I guess I could bigify that a little bit. And then, you know what? Let's bring my ugly mug to the other side of this curtain. Will smallify me a little bit too. Put me down in the corner. So anyway, Mad Kings and Queens by Allison, Rattle, and Allison, Vale. The frank and fascinating book ransacks the remarkable history of 40, there's a lot of them, of Europe's most dumb, deluded, and downright dangerous monarchs. To reveal a legion of kings and queens who have sat upon the pedestal of power and abused it in a spectacular style. You gotta love alliteration in this write-up here. Is this something? Yeah. So this is off the back of the book. Let me just put that in the corner like that so you can see it all. And if you're watching the video later and you want to pause this and stuff, you can grab that. Or it's right here on Goodreads. The respectability of the royal position is well and truly tossed aside by the whimsy and the wanton depravity of generations of mad European monarchs, including the queen who murdered her husband with a red-hot spit, The bloodthirsty monarch who impales tens of thousands of his subjects. Vlad is in there, right? Oh, well, here we go. The vampiric ruler who bathed in the blood of young women. The king of excess who beheaded his wives. Henry VIII, they're putting up there as mad, which, Mad Kings and Queens is a spectacular celebration of 700 years of royal eccentricity, detailing a catalog of madness and exploring the finer intricacies of royal breeding that lay at its roots. So, there's a lot here, right? The problem is, from a GM perspective, is you don't want every king in every adventure in every corner of your setting to be mad. On the other hand, you can have descriptions of kings that were mad that were in the past. Certainly in Game of Thrones, we're always talking about the Mad King, and it comes up numerous times, and it's an important aspect of who has a rightful claim to the current throne. So that's good, and certainly you can have a king that's in power somewhere that is mad and manages to hang on to power one way or another. So part of the conceit of royalty and nobility, in the sense of kings and queens, is a divine right to rule. So not only do your subjects have to believe in that divinity, but they also have to believe that the divinity has chosen you and your progeny and your ancestors as being superior and being handpicked to rule over this nation. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? There is the thinking that if that's true, then why don't you win every battle, and why aren't you ruling over the entire world? If there are multiple kings and queens, but there's only one divinity, now this may not be true for a fantasy campaign setting, but in the real world, if there is only one divinity, but there are multiple kings and queens, why is it that you were chosen for this chunk of the world and someone else was chosen for another section of the world? And what about all the sections of the world where no one is being chosen to divinely rule? Well, it seems a little inconsistent. So there are, now one mustn't question the monarch, Death Angel Shadow says. Well, I think that's what this book does, right? It questions monarchy in general. If you can pick out 40 and say they are all mad, one has to wonder, why would a divine entity choose someone who is mad or was going to go mad? Omniscience should give you some insight into who's going to be capable of staying on top of things, and certainly you've got to assume that someone who's going mad. So I think there's an assumption in this book that just believing that you're divinely chosen to do something is in itself, according to probably this book, a hint that there is madness there. Otherwise, I don't know that you find 40. Now, there is the other possibility that they are grasping at straws, picking out all of these individuals and claiming that they are all mad. maybe some of what is here is questionably mad. Allison Rattle, first of the two authors listed, grew up in Liverpool. So here's somebody with a UK background that has some sense of monarchy. Co-authored a number of non-fiction titles on subjects as diverse as growing old, mad monarchs, how to boil a flamingo, the history of America, and the biography of a 19th century baby killer. So here's an author who's not afraid to dive into research of very many subjects. She's worked as a fashion designer, a production controller, a painter, a decorator, a barmaid, and now owns and runs a vintage tea room. Well, that's lovely. I think it would be interesting to find out where that is and patronize it. This is a person who is not afraid to move around from situation to situation. Perhaps all of these jobs were in service of furthering her writing career. You can certainly see that. 3 teenage children. Her partner is a carpenter. She has a Jack Russell and a ghost cat. I'm going to let that just lay there. Lives in a medieval house in Somerset. So, not super remarkable, right? There are a lot of older houses in towns in the UK. So I would imagine a lot of people live in what could be called medieval houses. Although, I take that back. There's a lot of newer housing. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out my butt here. Anywho, if your family tree doesn't fork, you might be a monarch. Okay. Not bad. Somebody was talking the other day about how my friend Chris was talking about how, was it his great-grandparents or his grandparents that had gotten married, one of them, and they found out later through tracing their lineages that they were cousins, but in fact, one of them had been adopted. So, but he jokingly says his family tree doesn't so much fork as spoon, which I thought was a very funny line. He's a good fellow, Chris Brown. He runs a computer repair business over in Slade's Corners. He does a Sunday show on. Oops, you know what? I should go here. He does a Sunday podcast about D&D locally, which is to say he tries to talk to people that were here or are here now gaming in the Lake Geneva area that are, there we go. Let's see if that gets us there. Yeah. Slade's Corners, computer repair. He runs Con of the Lakes. It's a fundraiser in June. It's a one-day convention at the American Legion Hall in Twin Lakes. Twin Lakes? Or is it Silver Lake? Twin Lakes. And called Con of the Lakes. And he does the Slade Corners computer repair. This is the commercial portion of the show. And I'm trying to find a link to his podcast. Here it is. Nope, that's somebody else's. that he's pumping. Lakes Community Broadcasting. Lakes Community Radio Station, right? Yep. All right. Well, anyway, I will try to dig up a link to that and put it in the show notes later. That's the commercial. I stole his joke. I felt like I owed him a nod in the credits there. The OK Grognard Show is brought to you by the letters A, D, and D, and the numbers 1 and 2. Well, Death Angel Shadow, just the number 1 for me. I'm a first edition guy. I don't really use second edition stuff. I played through it, but I played through third and fourth and fifth too. So, and run games and everything except fourth. Never ran any fourth edition. I played some. Good morning, Grail Knight. Happy Saturday. Well, I won't hold it against you. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, let's get back to taking a look at this. So we're talking about its viability as a useful GM tool. And I'm not saying go out and spend $30, $40, $50 or whatever it might cost. You can get it at a Kindle for $3.99 if you want to grab it according to the link here. There are any number of stores linked off of Goodreads. It's a good site, so I don't mind them getting a little business off of this if they so do. Feel free to go through them. But let's look a little bit inside, because there's actually a sample of it on a online Kindle reader, right? Browser. 2007 Fall River Press. And book designed by Alan Bow. And I think, you know what? ScanPix gave up the illustrations because they're all old paintings of those monarchs, right? Or for the most part. So those were picked up outside of the... But the look of this book is pretty neat. And I want to... Okay. All rights reserved, 2007 retrieval. Here's a list here of the monarchs included. That's the first page of them. And here's the rest of them. So now if you want to get a feel for who's in the book, who you might be emulating if you borrow a example from here. Here's an example of one of the illustrations. Introduction. They don't come more appalling than aristocrats. Okay. Well, you know, they always say, get your biases out in the open in any thesis, in the opening sentence or paragraph. During the last 500 years of European monarchy, the royal courts and palaces have seethed with rulers who have been, at best, eccentric or mentally deficient, and at worst, psychopathic monsters who have committed the most heinous acts while sheltered behind the cloak and crown of royalty. Okay, cards on the table there, huh? I'd say so. They have slaughtered, slashed, tortured, and murdered their way through their ruthless and bloody reigns. A handful extended the boundaries of human depravity. Whoop, 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 whoop. Accidentally flipping. Handful have extended the boundaries of human depravity. The proliferation of inbreeding among royal families, as documented in Appendix B, spawned a tragic historical heritage of simpletons, sadheads, and hideously deformed imbeciles, all laughingly given powers beyond their comprehension. The certifiably deranged royalty in this particular catalog all have one thing in common. They lacked a compulsion to keep up appearances. This book examines and delves into the lives and minds of 40 of the most controversial, misguided, and deplorable royals. And I like that they use the Oxford comma here. From Europe's last 700 years. It provides revealing insights into the scandalous, whimsical, lunatic, and nefarious exploits committed by the most idiosyncratic rulers the world has ever seen. From a duchess who bathed in the blood of virgins, and a prince who gleefully impaled tens of thousands. What did I do? I keep going to the wrong. Oh, here we go. I did want to show you this page. So here's an example of what the entire page looks like. All right. Tens of thousands of... To a king who collected tall soldiers and an empress who cut out tongues, we confront the raving rulers of history who, even today, remain a compelling and disturbing reminder of the lethal combination of irrationality and absolute power. Let's dwell on that for a moment. Even today, the ones in this book remain a compelling and disturbing reminder of the lethal combination of irrationality and absolute power. There you go. Isabella, she-wolf of France. So you can see the script being used, right? And then let's slip on over. Here's an example of one of the portraits within. All right. Just flipping through a few of the pages. That gives you the sample. You can get the full version off of Kindle by paying for it. This is Kindle allowing for a sample of the book to be seen, which is great because you get a few things. Number one, you get the table of contents. So you get the full list of the monarchs they are claiming are mad and are including in this tome. You also get an example of the writing style. Well, certainly in the introduction, you get a clear sense of the bias of the authors. They put that right on the table, right up front. They are not in any way enamored with the system of the aristocracy, and are vehemently outing these rulers in particular, but royalty in general, as being off their rocker, if I can use a phrase. And don't let me off the hook if you think I'm making light of any sort of mental illness. I'm not trying to. But certainly my upbringing is such that certain words come perhaps too often easy from my lips, as they say. So I apologize to anyone who might think that I'm making light of mental illness. Not my intention. What I am saying is that these folks within this book are seemingly saying that the entire idea of the divine right to rule is a madness in and of itself, and from there, it's fairly easy to pick out 40 that you can claim have taken it above and beyond, and it is a condemnation of combining the inbreeding, which increases the chance for mental illness, and then combining that with a divine right to rule and absolute power. Obviously, they're saying lethal combination. They're saying that the beheadings and the impalements and all of the other killings and dismemberments that have happened over the years at the hands of aristocracy are all the evidence you need. And they go into quite a bit of it in here. Now, for the sake of taking a chunk here or there of this and porting it over to a medieval fantasy setting for a campaign, yeah, and I love it. They have all of the. Here, let me change my view here so that I can. Oop, there we go. Yep. Gotta flip that around. Anyway, you will definitely get one or two or three things in here. You'll probably get a lot more than that. But what I'm saying is be judicious in how many you pull. You don't want every single ruler in your campaign setting to emulate one of the individuals in here. These were taken from various lineages over 700-year span, right? So we're talking like Franks onward. I mean, really, even though they divvied stuff up amongst all their living male heirs at that point, rather than just the oldest, you definitely had lineages of royalty at that point. And Charlemagne, Charles the Great, getting the Pope to crown him as Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, even if it was in that period a title with no teeth, it nevertheless impressed upon individuals then and in coming generations that getting an official nod from the Pope, God's emissary here on earth, getting that acknowledgement that you are divinely holding the right to the reins to power, is definitely a way of consolidating and emphasizing and reinforcing your power. So, this is something that you're probably going to have in a medieval fantasy setting, for sure. But don't put it all in one time period, because otherwise your setting might not make a lot of sense. How can all of these people be in control and in charge all at the same time, right? Anywho, let's slide that back out of the way. We will put me back on the other side of that in just a second. Let's do this and this. There we go. All right. I want to say thank you very much to everybody who came out today. As always, you're wonderful. If you do pop in here during a show, make sure you follow the channel and chime in on the stream chat, because we'll add you in on a list. This is the end of week 22, keeping a list, and on Monday of the following week, we will give something away. We only ask people to chime in on the stream chat, so we're not chasing bots to give them something. There's no purchase necessary. It doesn't cost you anything, so please do join in that regard. Also, don't forget, if you are planning on going to GameholeCon this year and you think about running events, get yours ready and submitted, because the sooner you do, the sooner people will be able to sign up for stuff. Our schedule tomorrow, Rules Retrospective, will be looking at one of the two remaining classes from first edition AD&D. That is either, we looked at Thieves last week, didn't we? And we were going to hold off on Assassins because I don't use them and kind of put them into subclasses that I don't use. So I think we got to go on to magic users tomorrow. Weekly news and announcements on Monday, cartography and world building on Tuesday, campaign discussion on Wednesday, GMing tips on Thursday, building adventures on Friday, then back around to GM reviews the next week. If you're catching up with us on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up. And of course, feel free to leave some constructive criticism in the comments. We can always use some help making the show a little bit better, and we appreciate your support. And thank you for joining us 9:30 a.m. every day if you can make it. And if you can't, we'll be doing it anyway. So just stop in when you can. Thanks very much. That's the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.